plots and 5-number summaries. So this is stuff you've seen before. You guys all know you've got that formula sheet. I can't seem to find my copy anywhere, but on your formula sheet, you have at the very bottom on chapter 3, because this is our last section, chapter 3, it has the 5-number summary, the 5 things that we will have to be able to find. So that's the first thing. Whether or not you write this down in your notes is completely up to you because it's on that formula sheet that's given to you. But anytime I'm going to ask you to make a box plot, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is give me the 5-number summary. So the minimum is your lowest value. Quartile 1, median is just another word for what? Yeah, it's the middle, 50%, or the second quartile. Quartile 3, and the maximum, or your highest value. So we've already found those quartiles, maximum and minimum. That's not anything too difficult. So we're going to do an example by hand, and we're going to do one on the calculator, and that's really about all we have to do today. So here is our first one. Every 6 months, the United States Federal Reserve Board conducts a survey of credit card plans in the U.S. The following data are the interest rates charged by 10 credit card issuers randomly selected. Determine the 5-number summary. So if I'm going to do the 5-number summary, your maximum, your minimum, your quartiles, what should I do with this data first? Well, let's do one by hand before we do one on the computer.
Lowest to highest.
Yes, we have to go lowest to highest. So my lowest value is 6.5. Looks like my next one is a 9.9. So if you're doing this example in your notes, I would just make this list of numbers. Let's look. Next we have 12, 13, 13.3, 13.9, 14.3, 2 14.4s, and 14.5. So, my 5-number summary. When you list the 5-number summary, you don't have to say necessarily the minimum is this, quartile 1 is this. If you list the 5 numbers in order, I will assume you put them in order in the 5-number summary. So the first number in the 5-number summary is the minimum, which is. Second is the first quartile. So let's talk about finding these quartiles by hand. First, you have to find the median. So my median would be, let's see, there's 10 values, so here's your middle. So to find the median, you would have to add 13.3 and 13.9, divide by 2. And what did you get?
13.4.
Is that what you guys got?
I got 13.6. Oh, I'll probably get it wrong.
Make sure you put the top in parentheses.
Oh, definitely didn't do that.
Okay. Then your first quartile is the median of the lower half. So here's the middle. So the median of the lower half would be 12. The median of the upper half is 14.4. So I have my minimum. My first quartile is 12. Second quartile is that median. Third quartile was the 14.4. And my maximum is 14.5. Yep, it's all stuff we've done before, really, so no new calculations there. All right, so far so good? Next example. This is just talking through the steps of what we will have to do when we draw box plots, so up to you what you necessarily write down from here. The first thing, we are going to have to find the upper and lower fences. You don't really have to write down that formula again, it's on your formula sheet, we've already done it, but we need to know those so we know any outliers. Then we will draw a number line. I don't just want a box, I usually put like a number line below it. So we'll have to make sure it's long enough to go from your minimum to your maximum values. We will label our vertical lines at quartile 1, median, and quartile 3. So that's your box. It starts at quartile 1, ends at quartile 3. The lines go to your smallest and largest values that are not outliers. So we find that upper and lower fence so we can find outliers. And if you have an outlier, your line won't go all the way out to that. So we'll only go out to smallest and largest, the whiskers, those points that are not outliers. And then anything that is an outlier, we'll put an asterisk there. So I'll give you a minute to kind of jot this down. I want to draw the box plot for this set of data that we already had. So when you do that, you have to start by finding your upper and lower fence so we know if we have any outliers. In finding your upper and lower fence, if you're looking at your formula sheet, we need to know the IQR. How do we get the IQR? Right, quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So in that example we just did, our quartile 3 was 14.4 and our quartile 1 was 12. So what's the IQR? Okay. Then we need the upper and lower fence. So lower fence, if you look at your formula sheet, it's quartile 1, which is 12, minus 1.5 times the IQR, which is 2.4. And we get 8.4. Then we need the upper fence, which is quartile 3, so 14.4, plus 1.5 times the interquartile range, the 2.4. And we get 18. All right, this is so we know if we have any outliers. Do we?
Yes.
Yes. I'm looking at my data. The first point is 6.5, that would be an outlier. All right. So we have to draw a number line to put our box plot above. Well, that is not straight, but just pretend. I'm just going to count by 2's. Okay, the actual box itself deals with these middle 3 numbers. It starts at your first quartile, so my box will start at 12. It'll end at my upper quartile, so 14.4. And you draw the line for the median or the second quartile in the middle, so 13.6. Okay, your whiskers go out to your lowest and highest as long as they are not an outlier. So the 6.5 is an outlier, so my whisker will go to the next lowest point, which is 9.9. And my upper whisker would go up to 14.5. And then since we have an outlier at the 6.5, what we do is we put an asterisk out there. So that shows me there was a point there, but I don't want to draw my whisker all the way down to that because it is an outlier. Any issues with that? Would this box plot be skewed at all? Which way? Think like this is kind of the middle. If you compare your whiskers, we have a lot more points down to the left. So it is skewed left. If your whiskers are about the same length, then it's pretty much symmetric. Whichever way that whisker extends further is really telling you which way it's skewed. All right, so far so good? The last thing I'd like to do is talk about doing these on a calculator, if you wanted to. So if you would, we're just going to do one out of our books. So if you look at page 168, example 4 there. Okay, so what we're going to do, I gave you 2 sets of data here. Most of the time, I just had you enter 1 set of data at a time. But let's go ahead. I'm going to show you how you can do 2 at once because this tells us, so we had the red blood cell mass of rats determined when they returned from space versus our control group. Okay, so if I want to actually compare these, I could make 2 separate box plots, but it'd be nice if I could look at both of them at the same time. So what I want you to do is put one of these in L1 and the other in L2. So put all of your flight in L1, all of your control in L2 for me. So if we go to second y, we have all of our different plots. So let's go into plot number 1. First of all, you need to turn it on. Second of all, the type, I want the box plot that's the next to last one. So the very last one is a line graph. The one right before that is your box plot. Says my X list is L1, so we're good with that. Then if we want to graph both of these, so if I only had one, this is all I would need to do. But I want to graph both of these lists at once. So let's also go to our L2. So I did second stat plot again. And now I'm going to go to plot 2. Okay, so you had plot 1 turned on for your first list. Plot 2, I want to turn it on. And I also want the box plot, so the next to last one there. And your X list on that one should be L2. I don't want to graph the same list twice. I want that one to be L2. If you need to change it, you can hit second, and you can see above like your 1, 2, and 3 keys. There's L1, L2, L3. So you can change it if it doesn't automatically change for you. Okay, did everybody get both of those plots turned on to box plot? Okay. Then if you go to zoom, oops, I missed it. We want number 9, zoom stat. And I had something else entered in my calculator. I should delete that out. If you have an extra line, that might be just an extra something in your list.
So like I didn't get that. Yeah, when we put zoom, it's got like 4.
So we could use this to answer questions. Which of these had a higher average, do you think? The bottom one. That was my L2, wasn't it? So that was my, which one? The control group. So they had a higher red blood cell count. And
It's like all black. How do you know which one is which?
it should put L1 on top and L2 on bottom when you do that. You could answer questions like which one had a higher range, does it appear? Yeah, the first one, because if you compare your lowest and highest, those are more spread out. You know, I could ask you some questions like that, but this makes it easy to put those side by side and compare them. Do you guys have any questions for me? Okay, so that is our stopping point. We did not, I'm going to take off this very last question. You don't have to do problem 19. It was just a review problem. And I know with pictures and everything, we didn't have all that much time in class. So you need to do 4 through 12 even and number 16. A lot of these, you can do these box plots on your calculator if you want. I would like for you to draw maybe one of them by hand, like number 8. Let's do that one by hand. But after that, if you want to use your calculator to draw them, you're welcome to do